Are camp directors getting too scared too early?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Running camp comes with enough moving parts. UltraCamp keeps registration, payments, and communication in one place so you can spend less time juggling systems and more time building an incredible camp experience. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
If you're still making camp schedules and spreadsheets, you know how draining it is and how often mistakes slip in. Enter Camptivities. It's made by camp people for camp people to save time, cut errors, and make camp run smoother. Be the change your camp needs. Explore smarter scheduling today at camptivities.com.
Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast, brought to you by UltraCamp, Camptivities, and the Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic. My name is Travis Allison. I'm a summer camp consultant specializing in solving things from camp directors so that they have space to think long-term and make big plans.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I'm also a camp consultant specializing in diversity, equity, inclusion, leadership, staffing, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Awesome. And I am Max Claman. I am also a camp consultant, and I help camps really deliver transformative and powerful personnel and programmatic enhancements.
Yeah, great to have you back, Max. We're grateful to have you here. Before we jump into the topic, I just want to remind folks that almost all of the apps that you're listening to, especially on your phone, will have a chance to leave us a rating and review. We find that an honest rating and review can help folks get a feel for whether or not CampHacker is the right camp specialty podcast for you. If not, Go Camper's got lots of others. So you can do that at ratethispodcast.com/camp or on your app. So, Max, you coined a term that is the key to our discussion today.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I feel like is still evolving. It's still the label that we have right now that I kind of have stitched together may not be the one that we wind up with, by this time next year. But I do want to talk a little bit about what I call preemptive scarcity mindset, and this concept that I think it's happening in every industry, but in the camp industry in particular, which is so cyclical and has to kind of forecast now for 9 months from now, we're really starting to see a lot of people who are worried, and they're worrying about things that haven't happened yet with respect to how is my enrollment going to look for this coming year? How is my staffing outlook going to look for this coming year? These are all things that we've always had to worry about and think about. And right now, given the current state of the world and many of the challenges that people are looking at with respect to budgets and with respect to their ability to communicate and maintain a community, I think people are freaking out about this a little bit more than we've seen. And so I'm talking with a lot of folks who are worried about, what does their enrollment look like this year with people less inclined to spend? And if that's the case, how does that impact their budget? And if that's the case, how does that impact what they're able to do with and for their staff? And it kind of the ripple effects from that. And so it's an interesting topic, a little bit of an abstract one, but one that I think definitely warrants conversation. And I think the two of you are obviously people who have a lot of great opinions and have the ability to kind of stitch together thoughts in a way that I could only ever aspire to. So I'm excited to have the chance to chop it up with you two and hear what your thoughts are.
Okay, you could stop kissing up. You're on the podcast.
I was going to say, and we are two people who definitely have a lot of conversations.
And a lot of opinions.
You put a period at that point. Well, that's great. I'm glad you put up your hand in. I'm to be on the show and to bring us this topic. I'm trying to tell, Max, from the way you describe it, if you think this is a positive thing, a negative thing, or a neutral thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it really depends on who is the one doing the answering. Like for me personally, I think you could take this a lot of different ways. I think having this scarcity mindset as a default can be challenging for leaders, particularly those who have not necessarily had to deal with those sorts of challenges before, because they don't necessarily have the perspective or the lens through which to view it any way other than quote unquote negative. But I think there is absolutely, in this day and age, particularly when you're looking at things like your programming, your staff structure, and in some cases even your budget, where a less is more approach can really be beneficial. And when I say less, I don't necessarily mean spending less. I'm thinking of it more in the sense of you have the opportunity to be more intentional about how you're allocating your resources. Because instead of, I would personally, when I was a camp director, my philosophy was always, I would rather do 6 things really, really well than try to do 36 different things.
20, yeah.
And I think that there are some camps that really do throw everything at you and try and offer all these amazing things, which is great. There's also a space for really kind of honing in on a few really core aspects of your program or your culture or your business that I think can help a lot of camps right now who are worried about their enrollment, that can lean into that and kind of use this to their advantage as a way of either repositioning themselves in a somewhat not saturated, but certainly vast marketplace, and then also use it as a differentiating factor when you are marketing and promoting your camp to other people.
Yeah. I think we should talk about budgeting and expenses and all that stuff. But to start this off, the first thing that comes to mind based on what you said, Max, is that I think the camps that will be successful at navigating these are camps that are incredibly intentional about culture, that it is their culture that gets it. One of my camp mentors said something a long time ago. It's always stuck with me. His name is Jim Penner, and I heard him say one time, just wrote straight to my brain, give me a great camp staff, so therefore a great camp culture, and I'll run an amazing camp in a parking lot.
Yep.
That's true.
So true.
Yeah.
Can I push back on the premise that we chose today?
Of course.
Are camp directors more worried than they were, say, after the 2007 financial crisis, after the pandemic? Like I'm trying to find a time in my memory where I wasn't worried about staff retention, where I wasn't worried about the budget, where I wasn't worried about enrollment. Like, are we naming a thing that is just sort of like endemic to camp directors, period?
It's a good question. So I think this more aligns with like that 2008 period of time. I think that was a very tangible moment in time. I think the pandemic was, even though obviously there were tangible elements to it, I think it was a little bit more of an intangible. Nobody necessarily knew what was being impacted. It wasn't just finances that were driving it. It was a literal global catastrophe. Whereas financial crisis is something that theoretically we assume we're going to bounce back from. It's happened in the course of history. But I think it's also very targeted in the sense of how it impacts consumer behavior, and more specifically to camp as opposed to kind of the broad label of consumer. How camp very often, not necessarily at the highest levels, right, at the most kind of like 1%er levels of sorts, but how camp is often viewed as a luxury item. You're choosing between day camp or daycare, and those are vastly different things in some cases, and vastly different expenses for families in some cases. And so I think people in a pandemic, it was like, we can't do anything right now. Whereas 2008 financial crisis, and right now in kind of this very unknown climate that we're in, not just financially, but also with things like visas and being able to, like, will we have staff? Like a lot of those kind of very tangible, tactile things that we can touch and feel, at least what I'm hearing is people are feeling a heightened sense of the same thing. I think you're right that this is a little bit universal. It's always there. We are always thinking about these things. I think right now what I'm seeing is A, it's heightened for a lot of people, and B, people are worrying about things that haven't happened yet. That's that preemptive part of this, right? It's not just having that scarcity mindset. It's that there are people who are starting to, and rightfully so in some cases, contingency plan for things that might not happen at all, and certainly have not happened yet. And so that's where I think it's does that make sense? That's kind of what
it does.
Yeah.
Actually, I voted up this topic a lot, but now I love it very much. My mind is spinning now because like I was a camp director for 15 years and I worried about those things every single year. And I'm trying to harken back to a time, of course, when I was a counselor, there's all sorts of things I didn't worry about as far as camp administration. But like, I'm also sitting here thinking about the same conversations we're having on visas we had during Trump's first pregnancy. Wow. You heard it here. Breaking news, CampHacker listeners. Straight out of Washington, we're getting word that, okay, cut. Okay, go back. So, in Trump's first presidency, right? He made a lot of overtures and threats about the visa program, right? And that was 10 years ago. So there has never been a moment in time,
right,
in my stint as a camp director where I wasn't worried about X, Y, and Z. As a matter of fact, I always said I was the Chicken Little of camping because I'm always running around telling everyone how everything's about to change at any moment in time, right? What I'm trying to actually think, was there a time when we weren't doing that? Was there a time before, like maybe in the go-go 90s when we weren't doing that? And if so, was it, what am I trying to get at here? Was it a factor of the time and the politics? Or was there something about the way we did our jobs? I don't know. Was it more the environment, or was it more the people and the way they were doing the work? And I know those things are, before you answer, I know those things are inextricably linked. I'm just trying to peel back to root cause. How do we get here?
I do think it is the times, and there are extra pressures now than before. Having been through some of the hard financial times as a camp director, I think about times when people have really struggled to find staff, and there have been other camps who are like, I don't actually have any trouble. And you're like, because you have good camp culture, that's why. So when we had a solid camp culture and we'd work really intentional around that, then we got through a lot of these stressful times a lot easier, and didn't have the same base level of stress with now a whole bunch of uncertainty added on top of that. So I take your point, Chris. Yes, it's always stressful being a camp director, and these are always factors that people are looking at. I think this is a bad year for it.
I don't disagree. I'm me, I'm always so solution oriented. If that's the case, then okay, now that we've established that, then what do we do? Because without digging too deep, it's probably not a good idea to build your camp in defense of, right? Like, oh God, this is going to happen. Oh God, like it's going to lead to quick decision making, which then is bad decision making, right? We don't want to make decisions based on like, oh, well, in 2 years from now, we're not going to have enough money, so we have to not spend any money this year. Because like I see there's a lot of articles popping up around this in the camp circles that like less is not more, less is just cheap. And I want us to get away from that. We have funds, some of us make money, and we should spend the money with the idea that we will continue to be in operation 3 to 5 years from now. But Max, what you're saying, and what also I'm hearing, is that people are afraid they're going out of business next year. I had 2 camp clients who I suspect aren't going to ask me back only because their finances are in complete disarray and they're not certain if they will be running next year. And these are large camps, and that's disappointing and disheartening to hear. So, I mean, again, I'm so solutions oriented. Like, what can we tell camp directors to shake them out of that mindset, while the 3 of us certainly cannot give any reassurances that the visa situation or that is going to be better, or that prices are going to drop, or that, we're going to beat out all the various forms of technology that are available to both parents and children for recreation. I mean, maybe I'm getting too fast to solutions, but I think this is a problem I think everyone's feeling. If you hear this, you're feeling it.
Yeah. And I think it's also, I think what you said at the very top about, isn't this something we always deal with, is true. And I think what we're looking at right now, at least what we're hearing from people right now, maybe, and this is dramatic, so forgive me if I'm overusing this label, but we had a very challenging period of time just in life, and certainly running a camp 2020, 2021, 2022. All of the challenges that people have had were more challenging. Some people have figured out a way to kind of settle back into some version of a new routine, if not the same. But I think some of what people are experiencing now, and kind of this preemptive scarcity mindset, this mentality that folks have, is born a little bit almost out of PTSD, where it's not, the fear is not like, yes, it could be, oh my gosh, we're not going to run this summer. That's a legitimate one that I do hear from some folks, because they're like, how are we going to get people to sign up when they have to divert their resources somewhere else to things that are basic needs, right? But they're also the people who their mindset and the thing they're concerned about is, I really don't want it to be like 2021 again. I can't do that again. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a major piece of this too, is the people who are predisposed to thinking of like the before times of like, oh, it was so great, it was so easy, which to your point, Chris, no, it wasn't. This was still like, there was still a lot that we had to do. And then it got harder. And then the past 3 summers, I feel like we've hit a little bit more of a stable groove, at least with respect to systems and processes feeling a little bit more approachable, whereas they weren't for a real period of time there. But I think people are so concerned about going back to another major disruption. And right now, because things are A, volatile, and B, unpredictable with respect to things out of our control, it feels similar in some ways to a global pandemic, for instance, that was completely out of our control. And we had to adapt. And I think we always, as camp people, everyone is so adaptable. It's kind of what makes camp people. But there are certain things that, like, do we have to adapt to this? Like, so I think that's what factors in. It's almost like fatigue that sets in. Does that resonate on any level with kind of the people you've been talking to or things you've been thinking about?
Yeah, people are pre-exhausted, which is what we're talking about, but they're also exhausted. Like Travis mentioned, it's PTSD from years of this kind of thing. I have a question, but it's probably for later. So I'm going to kick it to you, Travis.
Okay. Well, I think that one of the things I'm encouraged about is that a lot more camp directors I talked to this past summer, we're recording this in October 2025, a lot more camp directors said they had a staff who felt like it was a staff they could build on starting in 2025. Like, people were a little more mentally capable of handling summer camp than they have been before, more interested in being a part of this bigger thing that is camp and the difference, the impact that we can make at camps. So I'm encouraged by that. I will say that this is why for Go Camp Pro, especially my work, I'm in particular moving away from just doing marketing and consulting into just thinking like, how do we build resilience as an industry, as a camp? And the thing that I've been talking about for a couple of years in little bits and pieces is that if we use the tools available to us and think in systems, then even people who aren't naturally systems or solution, go straight to the solutions people, we start to build that muscle and that habit, then we have some more space to consider the ramifications of future problems, to think about big pictures, even more time and energy to care for our people more. And I think all of that builds resilience in a way that, while we acknowledge that there are more stressors at the moment than in the last couple of years, that there is a way out of it, to my mind, or a way to make it never perfect, but a way to make it a lot better.
Yeah. And I think, touching on something you brought up earlier with respect to culture, I think the problem we face sometimes in the camp world, and certainly when we're running a camp, is there's sort of 2 cultures that you have, right? There's the summer culture, and then that off-season culture where you're with a much smaller team and thinking about things where you're not surrounded by the joy, the excitement, the energy of the summer. And I think that is where, again, the farther out you get from summer and the more you look the challenges in the face, the easier it can become to kind of slip into this place. Chris, I think the way you phrased it was actually particularly apt, of being able to be like, spending less isn't necessarily benefiting your program. It just comes across as cheap, right?
Yes.
It's like that you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, but people are making those decisions in a little bit of like a bad context because they're not in camp in the moment. When you're in camp and you're surrounded by all this, you can see and feel all of those opportunities for, what are the ways we can improve and enhance things. And then when you get to the off season, it becomes a little bit more self-critical. It becomes a little bit more evaluative. And you're like really starting to think about, it's like, well, we could just like not offer this anymore. And who would people even, have a problem with that? I think back, and this is in the reverse, but an example of this, post-pandemic, I had an urban camp that I was working with that wanted to elevate their program. They were like, we're losing families. We need to figure out a way to get people excited about signing up. And they were like, they didn't offer a swim program. They were like, we're going to offer a swim program. It's going to, it's going to be this exciting new thing that we'll be able to get. We'll be able to, we have a lot of other camps that are competitors, so to speak, and they all have swim. So we're going to do that to be able to match it, to compete. It was a major expense for them. They both in the sense that they had to find a facility to take over in the city they were in. They had to get transportation to and from that facility, and they had to obviously add staff to assist with that swim program. All of this to say, and this was before, all of this happened before I got connected with them, they wound up losing a ton of their families. And it was because the families who were already signing up to be at that camp were signing up because they didn't have a swim program.
Yep.
So in that sense, they were panicked about, we need to get people to sign up. And they wound up losing their existing base because of the people who, and so it's like, it cuts both ways, right? There could be times where it's like, you want to spend more, which is great to like enhance your program, but you also need to just be like really intentional about where it makes sense to do that, who you are actually serving. And for us, I always look at that first and foremost as our staff and then our campers and families and kind of what that looks like and what you're doing to set yourself up for success, set those communities up for success. Because I think, go ahead, Chris.
But that what you're saying is always true. What we're talking about is surrounding all of that decision making and trying out new stuff. Surrounding that is this aura of like fear. There's this aura of like, oh my gosh, is this going to be the last big decision I make? Because we're not, like, yes, we should always consider like what's good for our program, what's good for our community, what's good for our pocketbook. But I feel like people are making those decisions as if they're on the edge of a cliff. And I mean, I don't know. We're not. I think, I mean, I can't speak to your camp listener, but a lot of us are not on that edge. Although, honestly, I'm going to say since 2021, we've been operating that way. Like we have been, I'm going to share stuff about Camp Highlight, the camp that I started. We've been like terrified to spend money for like 3 or 4 years. Like no new money is being spent. Or rather, I should say, like we haven't expanded a lot of programs or the way that we do things a lot, or if we have, it's been very conservatively. And again, it is 4 years after the pandemic. Like any market forces that are going to affect us have already affected us. Kids and parents have settled into whatever the new normal is for however long that's going to last. It's already arrived. We're still operating like we do have PTSD. So like, yeah, everything you're saying, Max, is correct. But it's like we really have to address that aura that is surrounding. And, the three of us cannot offer assurances that anything is going to be better. However, I think the point that I want to bring to this conversation is that believing that everything's going to be worse isn't making your program better. It's just making you more conservative and less intentional.
It's a great point. Yeah. I think there's always kind of a mantra that I take to staff orientation, which is like, there's always, regardless of your position at camp, whether you are a first year, like junior counselor or a camp director, there's kind of these two questions you should always be asking yourself at any given point during the day. Is everybody safe? And is everybody having fun? Right? And if you can answer those two in order with a yes, That's like 80% of camp, like job done, right? And I think right now that is everybody safe category. And
Yeah.
that question is one that people have expanded beyond just the physical safety, so to speak, and emotional safety. But I think it's also something that we're starting to get hung up on. I know I was for sure guilty of this as a camp director. I got so concerned about safety, and it could be safety for the campers, safety for the staff, safety of the business, whatever that looks like. I really got to a place where I was making decisions really just in that one lane. And that can hinder a program. And it's like people have been living, almost existing in a fight or flight state.
Yes.
And haven't been able to come out of it. And I personally, I can't speak for the two of you. I'm not necessarily qualified to help people with that from like a personal, like almost in a therapy way that might be, lend itself. Yeah. I would say you guys have a better shot than I would. But I think that I think is the next step, right? Is like, what can we do as a camp community of industry professionals to support one another in this way? And like, that is the other aspect of community, Travis, that I think, and culture, that maybe we haven't brought up, is what is the cultural impact within the industry compared to, just that you are one camp.
Exclusive for CampHacker listeners, grab UltraCamp's free guide, The Parent Experience Checklist. Practical steps to simplify registration and keep families coming back. Download at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker. Parents don't want clunky processes, and you don't want constant phone calls. UltraCamp helps you simplify registration with mobile-friendly forms, offer payment plans that work for your families, reduce calls and emails with automated reminders, and keep parents engaged with built-in communication tools. UltraCamp helps you create smooth, stress-free parent interactions so your team can focus on camp, not customer service. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker.
If you're still building camp schedules and spreadsheets, you know how much time it eats up and how easily mistakes sneak in. Camptivities changes that with scheduling software that saves hours and ensures every camper gets the experience you promised. Whether it's group or camper scheduling, different schedules every day, or you just want to break your own rules to give a deserving camper a popular activity, Camptivities handles it all. With auto scheduling and over 70 easy-to-use reports, you'll reduce errors, keep staff happy, and run a smoother program. Be the change your camp needs. Start today at camptivities.com. Don't wait until the new year. Now's the time to find a better way to schedule and save 15% for the first year. We'd love to show you the next big thing in camp. Visit camptivities.com to set up a time to chat. Let us help you get away from your desk and back out to camp. I want to suggest solutions, but I want to wait till like we're done talking about the problem, because I don't want to. I always jump ahead to solutions because I'm always like, whenever anyone presents a problem, like, what do we do?
Jump in. I think.
Okay. So this is something that I've been thinking about because, like I said, my camp has been running scared for a few years, and I'm sick of it. And the truth is, we've stockpiled quite a bit of money that's just been sitting there. And we could be using that to benefit the kids, the staff, and the community, but it's just sitting in a bank account because we were so sure that there's going to be a downturn, right? And that we're going to need all this money. And it has continued to grow the last 3 years until at this point, I'm just like, all right, how are we spending this money, right? What are we doing? Right? If we're not going to make ourselves rich, if we're not going to all buy golden toilets, then we should probably give this money back to the kids and the staff. The thing is like the aura of fear that I think, and I feel like I'm saying this all the time, but I think it's one of the ways that we can defeat this is to, one, be forward thinking, and be intentional, and be dynamic. It is not a secret that this industry is extraordinarily conservative. And I mean that across every metric, right? But it's particularly slow to make changes, right? The fact that camp is pretty much the way camp was 50 years ago, with they've swapped, some people are darker than they used to be, but nothing else has changed, which is in itself a problem. But I would urge camps to be a little bit more dynamic and to listen, put your ear to the ground to listen to where your program might go. Okay. Holding on to a program exactly the way you've done it forever and ever and ever is probably not the move right now because things are really different than they were in 1980, 1990, 2000, all these moments when I was involved in camp, right? Maybe not 1980, I was 5, but still, like the lack of forward thinkingness and the lack of dynamism. Okay. I'm having problems with words
Pregnancy?
today. Yes, the lack of pregnancy amongst camp directors, the lack of dynamism,
Yeah.
I think is contributing to this aura. So, I mean, I don't know if anyone, the other thing I was thinking is like, I don't know if I'm talking on both sides of my mouth. Take small to medium swings.
Yeah.
I'm not like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying deconstruct your entire culture and build it up again before, I don't know, before the staff arrives this summer. I'm not saying that, although that would be fierce. But you don't have to do that. Take small to medium swings. Like just listen to the kids, listen to your staff. Like what can you institute? What can you introduce to sort of allay some of that fear for yourself and for the admin and for the staff?
So
those are my ideas.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that last piece up because again, similar to you, this is a very kind of abstract, still evolving topic, but I also always kind of look at things as like, what can we be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of look at it as there's like kind of these 4 categories, right? There's like the enrollment side, which is your families, existing families, things like that. There's a staff piece, there's a programmatic piece, and there's a budgeting piece. Budgeting piece is too specific to each individual camp and kind of what their needs are for us to necessarily give like a formal recommendation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Programming, some camps will be like, oh, our program is so unique. And it's like half the time, it's like, we're all kind of doing the same stuff. We're just calling it different things.
Mm-hmm.
I think programmatically, this fall is a great opportunity. These next basically 2.5 months is a great opportunity for camps to take a look at their programming and understand and for me with programming, it is the little swings. What are the little and medium swings that we can start looking at? Are there programs that we can outsource? Are there programs that we can enhance by bringing something in? Are there programs that we can add? Are there programs we should subtract? Right? You can start to look at those things. Some of them are budget correlated, some of them are not. And it's just as simple as saying, I'll use an example from a camp I used to do some work with. They always wanted to have this really great like ropes climbing program. They also were in an area that has one of the nation's like best indoor climbing facilities, maybe on the planet, certainly in the country, right? And there was a simple, like doing the math of like, you could use this as like a trip, something to do, something to check out, or you can just make this your climbing program and reallocate some of the other resources towards the rest of your staff in a more intentional way, right?
Right.
And then from staffing and enrollment, Chris, the piece that you brought up about listening. Right now, everyone is having these same thoughts, whether or not they're running a camp. They're thinking it may be the business of life, right? Mm-hmm. How am I going to do this month or what,
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity for camps, particularly those that work with kind of a broader population and are pulling not just from the same community all the time. Or if you're a community-based camp that's exclusively pulling from a specific community, I guess in theory this could work too. But organize listening sessions. Actually tap into staff network, into your family network. And in some cases, if you're working with teens, into your teen network. Understand what are the things that they are worried about. Get a feel for what are the things that would motivate them to say, I always say we need to always kind of be thinking about how do we switch camp from a want to a need. Mm-hmm. Right? Particularly with families who are unfamiliar with camp, our first generation camp families, right? Like mom didn't go, dad didn't go, like they don't know from camp. Mm-hmm. So how do we help them understand that the benefits, the value of camp? For our existing families, they already know, but now it's all right, we need to maybe level that up. We need to hear more from them about what they're looking for, what their needs are. And then
can I jump in here, Matt? I'm so sorry, but I don't want to lose this
always
point.
Keep going. So please.
So yes, listen to people, but then do something.
Yes.
Do something about that. So if you were listening to families and they're like, hey, the way that, whatever it is, this is too expensive. The dates don't work for me and my family. Like we're brown people. We're not sure about the safety of our children. If we listen to that and then do something, because I think a lot of camps just listen and then they immediately end up, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Do anything. Take a small to medium swing. Not swinging keeps you in the same exact position you're at and that same fear, because you're not moving forward. You're just staying in the same place. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was great.
Thank you.
I think also, I mean, we're talking about changes and all of that and the small pieces, which is near and dear to my heart because I think about how for me, it's tiny tools, lots of check-ins, and ways to refuel our families, our staff, etc. But just making those tiny changes and start practicing that muscle now. Like, don't make that what happens in May. Start thinking about ways that you and your team, or wherever, however big that is, like, what are the small changes you can do that are incredibly, like, try to get as small as possible. That's why I love and have talked tons of times about the book 2 Second Lean. Like, how is everybody making camp 2 seconds better every day? You're not trying to completely revamp the budget or reorganize the entire archery cupboard. It's just like, how do we make it easier for people to find the one thing they need? That muscle is incredibly important going forward, I believe.
Yeah,
Agreed.
All right. Since we're all agreed, I'm going to end us there and come to a point that we're all happy with. But thank you both for this conversation. I think it's incredibly important and timely, and I'm grateful to start off our 15th season of CampHacker.
Oh, wow.
With this topic. So thank you both for that. We are going to move on now to our tool of the week. The tool of the week is something that we ask our guests to come with, which is something that will help make your job of being a camp director easier or make you a better camp director. Chris, do you mind starting off the 15th season of Tool of the Week?
Sure, no pressure. My recommendation is pregnancy. Nope. Sorry, that came out wrong. I'm going to recommend this book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. There's a lot of reasons I like this book. So basically, it's a book that's trying to help you get past your blocks. You wake up every morning and you have a fantastic idea and you do nothing about it. And then you go to sleep that night, you wake up the next morning, you do it again and again and again. Days, months, years go by, you never work on that idea. Believe me, I came up with Camp Highlight when I was 16 years old and didn't do anything for 20 years. Don't do that. This book will help you. The War of Art really breaks down what the barriers are, what your resistance is, names it, confronts it, and it helps you overcome it. I got halfway through this, and then I immediately sat down at my computer and did a whole bunch of stuff I've been putting off for months. It's just about focusing yourself. The way that it's written is really easy to take. Like, the chapters are about a page long. Sometimes the chapters are like a paragraph long, so you can't even be like, oh God, I don't want to read the whole thing. You can read a paragraph, right? So I really recommend it. And I know you are, if you have a fantastic idea that you're sitting on, if there's just something that you've been putting off that you don't want to do, whatever it is, pick this up, check it out, change your life.
Max, what's your tool?
Yeah, I'm going to, I guess, do a little plug for the How We Feel project, which is essentially a product that was put out by a number of different sources, predominantly the Yale Center on Emotional Intelligence. And there's an app that's associated with this that essentially helps folks label and almost in some cases codify like how they're feeling or what they're feeling in a given moment. And for most of us as camp directors who I feel generally have decent EQ, what I find this can actually be helpful to do is use it as a model and an opportunity to help more effectively communicate and work with our staff, with our campers, on how they can share what they're feeling. I think that's something we right now have less of a handle on than we used to. I think we in the camp world have gotten so great at like event planning and event management that we've lost a little of the development piece. It's my personal opinion. I don't know if other people share that opinion, but I think this is a moment in time where we can really work with staff and campers to more effectively communicate what they're feeling, help them communicate what they're feeling, and then also manage that and help them feel better, right? Not just the happy feel better, but also feel things
Yeah, that's great. So my tool's going to be incredibly practical compared to the aspirational tools of the both of you, but that's a good mix, I think, in a conversation like these. Mine, I am calling the prompt of prompts, and it is text that you can find where the tool of the week is listed on camphacker.tv/podcast. This is show number 217. So when you go to look it up, we're 217. You go there, copy and paste this. This is a way to make AI use more effective for your camp. Long been an advocate of using AI to give yourself the freedom to and space to think and care for people. And one way to do that is to command or prompt the AIs to work better for you. And this is the way I've done this is I've set up a project in ChatGPT. I pay for ChatGPT so I can have custom GPTs and things like projects. Projects to me are the new custom GPTs if you spend some time designing those, because it'll keep all the discussion around that topic in the same place and a little easier to find. Same overarching instruction, overarching files that it draws from to make its decisions. The prompt of prompt is a set of instructions that I'm going to paste in camphacker.tv/podcast, where you now have a project, you open it up and you say, here's what I want the AI to do for me. I have these couple of resources. I want it to feel like this. Help me design a prompt. And it'll design something. So instead of me just going in and say, I need to rethink how camp staff manuals work, and that's my prompt, I would go to this prompt of prompts and say, this is what I need to do. I need it to be more effective for reaching Gen Z staff. I need people to be able to absorb information, for the mediums to be varied, and I need to sort of build this on like a reinforcement learning schedule. That's just my blather. I put that in and it structures all that. And it'll kick it out and say, okay, copy paste this into the prompt space that you're actually going to solve this in. So it just gives me that structure of the first piece. And then I put it in somewhere else, and then it kicks out a much better answer than I said, make me a better staff manual. And it's going to, sometimes the way that the copy paste works is it'll actually ask you more questions. I need clarity on this piece. So it makes you more clearly define what you want out of things. And sometimes it just is able to pull from all over to restructure those things in a way that works for the prompt style of AIs now in fall 2025. It's one of those things I've set an alarm. I'm going to monitor it every 3 months and probably edit it. But it has been a drastic difference in the output that I'm getting, how effective it is, how much less I have to edit or reprompt or go back and say, I want you to redo that. So incredible time saver for me, even though it adds an extra step.
You never cease to amaze me with this stuff. I'm always like, I can barely spell AI. So I'm like, when people are using it like this, I'm like, man, like it's so over my head. It's wild. That's awesome. That's like super cool.
Well, and I'll share it with you both when we get off of here. I'll send it to you, and then everybody else can find it at camphacker.tv/podcast. Max, thanks for being on CampHacker again. It's great to have you. How can people get in touch?
They can feel free to reach out to me. It's just my name, max.claman, CLAMAN @gmail.com.
Excellent. Thanks. We're grateful to have you, Max.
Yeah, it was such a great time. Always a pleasure. Really appreciate you both, as always.
Thank you. Chris?
You can find me. I've been camping out in your basement for about 3 weeks. Times are hard. No time to look there? Then you can email me at planetchris@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at planetchris1.
Great. Thanks, Chris. I'm glad to start another season with you.
Me too. Yay.
And if you have show ideas or feedback on the show, leave these two alone, especially if it's feedback. Come straight to me, Travis at gocamp.pro. But if you have other ideas or things that are giving you stress that would help you to hear some other voices, we'll pull together people based on the topic that we're going to talk about. So you're welcome to be a part of that. We would appreciate it. I want to take 1 second before we go and talk about one other Go Camp Pro podcast. I want to draw your attention to the Day Camp Pod. Even if you're not a Day Camp Pod and day camp director, you will get good stuff out of this. Great discussion. I want to thank Andy and Sam for being back and leading the show again. And I want to welcome Jordana Grosinger as the third chair to the Day Camp Pod. So just search your podcasting apps for the Day Camp Pod and subscribe there, and you'll get them automatically delivered to your phone, or just ask your smart speaker to play that show. Chris and I want to thank the sponsors of this week's episode, as well as our editor, Ryan Vandertorn. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. It's going to be great to have you as part of the CampHacker team starting this year. And especially want to thank Go Camp Pro's executive producer of podcasting, Matt Wolford, for all his work.
And thanks for the evening, friends.
The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. CampHacker, bringing your world into focus.